Hello friends, welcome to Sai Academy. Hope you all are good and doing well. Friends, today I am going to discuss with you all about a topic which is very important for your academic point of view as well as for the examination and competitive examination point of view. Friend, this topic is included in many competitive examination also, such as CSIR, UGC NET examination, IIT JAM, and BSc academic course examination. And many questions are asked based on this topic in IITG and medical entrance examination also. So friends, watch this video lecture carefully. Before starting the lecture, I have a request to you all. If you like, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe the channel and share the video with your friends and press the bell icon so that the notification of the coming video will come to you first and you can enjoy the video. The topic we will study today is the Bohr's model and hydrogen spectrum. Classical physics failed to explain many physical phenomena like black body radiation, the Compton effect, the photoelectric effect, and the pair production and the wave particle duality. Friends, these phenomena I have already discussed in the previous video lectures, and you can watch those lectures by visiting the playlist as well as pressing the I button in the above right corner of the screen. Friends, classical physics also fails to account for many other phenomena at the microscopic scale. By experiment, we know that atom exists as a stable and bound system, and they have the discrete energy levels. But as per classical physics, any such bound system should have a continuous energy levels. So there is a discrepancy between the two approaches. Rutherford tried to explain by his experiment and by inspiring the orbital motion of the planet around the sun. Rutherford proposed that atom consists of electrons used to move along a circular orbit having the nucleus at center. But this model suffers from two serious deficiencies that atoms are unstable and atoms radiate energy over a continuous range of frequency. The first deficiency results from the application of Maxwell's electromagnetic theory to this Rutherford's model. As the electron orbits around the nucleus, it accelerates and hence radiates energy. Therefore, it must lose energy. The radius of the orbit should then decrease continuously in a spiral motion fashion until the electron collapses into the nucleus. So, if this is a nucleus and electron is moving along this circular orbit, and if as per this, if it radiates energy, then its energy is going to decrease, and that way its orbit's radius is going to decrease by the time, and ultimately it will fall into the nucleus and collapse. Therefore, in this way, this model fails. Second, since the frequency of the radiated energy is the same as the orbiting frequency, its orbiting frequency increases continuously. This happens because the electron orbits collapses. Thus, the spectrum of the radiation emitted by the atom should be continuous. Therefore, these two conclusions first, atoms are unstable and atoms radiate energy over a continuous range of frequencies disagree with the experiment, as experiment predicts that atoms are stable and have a discrete set of energy levels. So Bohr afterwards combined the theory of Rutherford's planetary model, Planck's quantum hypothesis of discrete quantum energy levels, and Einstein's photoelectric effect concept proposed in 1913 that gives an accurate account of the observed spectrum of the hydrogen atom as well as the hydrogen like atom, and it successfully succeed in the explanation for the stability of the atom. So Bohr proposed his model by giving some assumption, and these assumptions are known as Bohr's assumption. Bohr's first assumption is instead of a continuous orbits, which is possible only in the classical mechanics. Only a discrete set of circular stable orbits are allowed. So instead of this continuum of orbits, only what? Only a set of discrete circular orbits are allowed, and these orbits are called stationary states. So Bohr's first assumption is this, that only electron can revolve around a nucleus in a discrete circular orbits. This may be circular as well as elliptical. So for simplicity, Bohr took the circular orbits. So instead of continuous orbits means orbits should not like this, not continuous. Electrons can't be anywhere in this continuous orbit. So as per the Bohr's first assumption, there is a nucleus in the center, and electron can revolve only a certain discrete orbits, not continuous. Okay, so atom can exist only in certain stable states with definite energies like E1, E2, E3, etc. So this is the first assumption, that instead of a continuum of orbits, only a set of discrete circular orbits are allowed. That orbits are known as stationary orbits or stationary states. Second assumption is that the allowed stationary orbits correspond to those for which the orbital angular momentum of the electron is an integral multiple of h cross. That is, orbital angular momentum L should be equal to integral multiple of h cross. That is, orbital angular momentum should be h cross, 2h cross, 3h cross, and so on. Only that orbit will be known as the stationary orbits and will be allowed orbits. And this relation is known as the Bohr quantization rule of the angular momentum. And this is a very famous relation. This relation is known as the Bohr quantization rule of the angular momentum. So you must remember this relationship angular momentum, which is also equal to mvr, is integral multiple of the h cross, where h cross is nothing but h by 2 pi. And third assumption is that as long as electron remains in a stationary orbit, it does not radiate electromagnetic energy. So, when the electron is revolving around a certain discrete orbit, it is not going to radiate any EM waves, any EM energy. So, when what that energy of radiation is possible only in the case of emission or absorption of radiation, and which also can take place only when an electron jumps from one allowed orbit to another. So third assumption states that suppose this is a first orbit and this is second orbit of the electron and this is third orbit of the electron. So I am roughly drawing the sketch. So the radiation of energy is only possible when electron, and that is possible in terms of emission or absorption of energy. This is true for both. So if there is a emission, that means electrons from the higher upper orbit jumps or jumps to the lower orbit. Then there will be a emission of energy, radiation. And when electron jumps to the from the lower orbit to the higher orbit, then there will be absorption of the energy, radiation. And this possible only among the allowed stationary orbits, right? So the radiation corresponding to the electron's transition from an orbit of energy En to another orbit of energy Em by a photon of energy given by h nu is equal to En minus EM. So this means that if if an electron with energy En jumps from energy jumps from orbit nth orbit to the lower mth orbit, then the emission of radiation energy will be given by h nu. So an atom may emit or absorb radiation by having the electron jump to a lower or higher orbit. These are the three assumptions which are made by the Bohr during the explanation of the hydrogen atom spectrum. Now let us find the energy levels of the hydrogen atom, orbital velocity, radii of the orbits, time period. So for that, let us consider electron of the hydrogen atoms moves in a circular orbit around the nucleus. The required centripetal force is provided by the electrostatic attraction between the electron and the nucleus. So then centripetal force is given by MeV square by R, where m is the mass of the electron, V is the orbital velocity of the electron, and R is the radius of the orbit. Here in this case, at the atomic scale, gravity has no measurable effect, as we know that the gravitational force between the hydrogens, proton and electron given by this formula is negligible as compared to the electrostatic force. Since this Fg by Fe, you know, comes out equivalent to the 9.9 into 10 to the minus 30. That is, gravitational force is very negligible in comparison to the electrostatic force between the proton and the electron. Therefore, the only force here considerable is the electrostatic force, which provides the necessary centripetal force. Therefore, for that, this MeV square by R is equal to Z E into E by 4 pi epsilon naught R square. Here, in the case of hydrogen, we will take Z is equal to 1, then it reduces to E square by 4 pi epsilon naught R square. So this is the first equation. Now, by taking the second assumption of the Bohr, which states that L is equal to MEVR, sorry, VR is equal to NH by 2 pi. Therefore, MEV square by R is equal to N square h cross square by m e r cube. So this, after substituting this into equation number 1, gives e square by 4 pi epsilon naught r square is equal to n square h cross square by m e r cube, which ultimately gives the radius of the nth orbit is equal to 4 pi epsilon naught h cross square by m e square n square. So this relationship is for the nth orbit radius, where thus we have radius for the nth orbit Rn is equal to 4 pi epsilon naught h cross square by m e square into n square, that is equal to n square a naught, where a naught is the 4 pi epsilon naught h cross square by me into e square. This is nothing but the radius of the first orbit, a ground state orbit. It is known as the Bohr radius. And after calculation, it gives 5.3 nanometer. Also, the speed of the orbiting electron can be obtained by m e v r n is equal to n s cross, and the formula Rn is equal to 4 pi epsilon naught h cross square by m e square n square. So let us find this. So Vn is equal to nh cross by m e r n. So let us substitute the values of Rn. So after substituting the values of Rn, so m e square divided by 4 pi epsilon naught h cross square n square. Therefore, we get Vn is equal to e square by 4 pi epsilon naught n h cross. Now let us calculate the time period of the electron orbiting around the nucleus, that is given by t is equal to 2 pi Rn by Vn, and substituting the values of Rn and Vn, we get 2 pi. Rn value is 4 pi epsilon naught h cross square by m e square n square into 1 by Vn, that is 4 pi epsilon naught n h cross by e square, which gives t is equal to. Friends, now I am going to tell you a very important thing that is known as the fine structure constant. That is given by the ratio of the v1 to the speed of light, where v1 is the speed of the electron in the first Bohr orbit. v1 is speed of electron in first Bohr orbit, and this is equal to e square by 4 pi epsilon naught h cross c, and after substituting the values for e h cross c, and we get alpha is equal to 1 by 137, that is alpha is equal to 1 by 137. Also we can calculate with the help of this. v1 is equal to c into alpha is equal to 3 into 10 to the power 8 into alpha is equal to 1 by 137, which gives 2.19 into 10 to the power 6 meter per second. So this is nearly equal to 2.19 into 10 to the power 6 meter per second. That is the speed of the electron in the Bohr's first orbit. Now we will calculate the total energy of the electron in nth orbit. For that, we will start from the energy relation. So total energy of the electron is given by kinetic energy half me v square minus 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught e square by r. So this is the potential energy, and this is the kinetic energy. Since the nucleus, that is proton, is infinitely heavy compared with the electron, so it can be considered at rest. That is, energy of the electron proton system consists of the kinetic energy of the electron plus the electrostatic potential energy. Now substituting the value for half mv square is equal to 1 by 2 e square by 4 pi epsilon naught r, we get total energy of the electron is equal to minus 1 by 2 e square by 4 pi epsilon naught r. So this equation shows that the electron circulates in an orbit of radius r with a kinetic energy equal to minus one half the potential energy. After substituting the value of Rn is equal to 4 pi epsilon naught h cross square by m e square n square, we get En is equal to minus e square by 8 pi epsilon naught r n is equal to can be written as En is equal to minus r by n square, where r is known as Rydberg constant given by the negative sign of the energy is due to the bound state nature of the atom, that is, states with the negative energy. En here is less than 0, and that corresponds to the bound states. Friends, you can see in the diagram here that the structure of the atom's energy. So as we see that as n increases from n is equal to 1 to n is equal to infinite, the energy level separation decreases rapidly. You can see that when n is equal to 1 to n2, the energy level separation is this much. And when it becomes from n is equal to 2 to n is equal to 3, the energy level separation decreases. And as we move in the increasing side of the in n, the energy level separation decreases. And since n can take all integral values from n is equal to 1 to n is equal to infinity, the energy spectrum of the atom contains an infinite number of discrete energy levels. Infinite number of discrete energy levels. So, in the ground state, n is equal to 1, the atom energy has this value for n is equal to 1, and radius is equal to Bohr radius is equal to 5.3 nanometer. The states n is equal to 2, 3, 4, and so on correspond to the excited states of the atom. These are the excited states of the atom since their energies are greater than the ground state energy. So we can see that as we move away from the nucleus, the energy of the states goes on increasing. When the quantum number n is very large, that is n tends to infinity, the atom's radius Rn will also be very large, but the energy value goes to 0, that is becomes positive. So as n tends to infinity, En tends to 0, and the system move from the bound state to the free state. This means that the proton and the electron are infinitely far away from one another, hence they are no longer bound and the atom is ionized in this case. So in this case, there is no restriction on the amount of kinetic energy the electron can take, and for it is why it becomes free. This situation is represented by the continuum of the positive energy states En greater than 0. So this state becomes the continuum state for the n tending to infinite, and in that case En becomes more than the 0. We have derived the equation for radius Rn, and the mass of the proton is negligible. If we include the mass of the proton, in that case The relations for En and Rn changes. In that case, we have to replace the mass by the reduced mass. Therefore, the equation Rn is equal to 4 pi epsilon naught h cross square by m mu e square n square, where mu is the reduced mass and can be given by mass of the proton into mass of the electron divided by mass of the proton plus mass of the electron is equal to mass of the electron divided by 1 plus mass of the electron by mass of the proton. So in this case, our radius of nth orbit becomes from here to here 1 plus me by mp into a0 n square, where a0 is the Bohr radius, and energy En becomes equal to minus mu by 2h cross square E square by 4 pi epsilon naught whole square by n square, that is equal to minus r by 1 plus me by mp n square. So our relations for the nth radius and nth energy state becomes get the new values as Rn is equal to 1 plus me by mp an a0 n square, and En is equal to minus Rydberg constant divided by 1 plus me by mp into n square. To obtain the radius and energy of a single electron orbiting a fixed nucleus of Z protons, we simply have to replace E square by the Ze square. So in that case, the system for a single electron having the nucleus of Z number of protons, we will write Rn is equal to what 1 plus Me divided by M A naught by Z n square, and En is equal to minus Z square R by 1 plus Me by M into n square, where M is the mass of the nucleus. Here is the mass of nucleus. Now, when Me by M becomes very less than 1, that is, mass of the nucleus is more, then we can, in that case, remove the term Me by M, and we get the simple value is equal to minus Z square R by N square for the energy levels. So far, we studied that the energy spectrum of the hydrogen atoms are discrete, in sharp contrast to the continuous nature of the spectral distribution of the radiation emitted by glowing solid objects. We can find the frequency of the radiation emitted as a result from the transition of the electron from an allowed state N to another allowed state M by the formula h nu is equal to En minus Em is equal to Rydberg constant into 1 by m square minus 1 by n square. So frequency of the emitted radiation can be given by En minus Em by H equal to R by H 1 by m square minus n square. So this formula gives the frequency of the emitted radiation where m is less than n. Thus, the hydrogen spectrum consists of several series, each representing a group of lines. Thus, we have nu is equal to R by H 1 by m square minus 1 by n square, where m is equal to 1 and n is equal to greater than 1. Then in this case we get the Lyman series. That is, the lines of this series correspond to electron jump from outer orbit to the first orbit when m is equal to 1. Therefore, in that case, frequency of the emitted radiation can be given by 1 by 1 square minus 1 by n square, where n is equal to 2, 3, 4. And this series lies in the ultraviolet region. Second, when m is equal to 2 and n is equal to greater than 2, in that case we have the Balmer series. Of hydrogen spectrum. And in this case frequency is given by R by H 1 by 2 square minus 1 by n square, where n is equal to 2, 3, 4, 5, and this series lies in the visible region. Similarly, for m is equal to 3 and n is greater than 3, we have the Paschen series of spectrum. And this frequency is given by R by H 1 by 3 square minus 1 by n square, where n can have values 4, 5, 6, and so on. And this series lies in the infrared region. Next, we have the bracket series for m is equal to 4 and n is greater than 4, which lies in the far infrared region. That region. Similarly, we have the Fund series. We have the Fund series of the hydrogen spectrum for m is equal to 5 and n is greater than 5, 6, 7, 8. and this fund series also lies in the far infrared region. Therefore, we have the sets of five series of hydrogen spectrum. So these are the things which I wanted to discuss with you all. If you have any doubt regarding the Bohr model and his assumption, postulates, and hydrogen spectrum, you can let me know by the comment in the comment box. Friends, hope you enjoyed this video lecture. And if you like this, please press the like button and share with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to subscribe the channel if you are watching our videos for the first time. And press the bell icon for getting the notification on the time of upcoming videos. Thank you, friends. Stay tuned. Goodbye.